There he is. There he is. Dan and the mushrooms are here.
So did you see our faces in that Stalingrad shot?
I did see that, and that is the Stalingrad movie that I have seen. I think there's another one. But because it's a foreign film and foreign films in the US get weird distribution, maybe it's the same one. I don't know. So
yeah, we get way more foreign movies than you guys do, that's for sure, because of our French heritage.
Yeah, we saw that. Well, plus in Canada in general is a bilingual country. I mean, there's tons of bilingual people in Canada. There's not very many bilingual people, but per capita in the U.S.
No.
We figure down here that if English was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for us. So
that's hilarious. Oh man,
it'd be funnier if I was joking.
Oh,
so.
You know, I actually, because Jesus was an Arab, right?
He was a Middle Eastern. I mean, Arab is, you know, an imprecise term that is misapplied even today.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. I meant he was dark-skinned.
I would make that assumption, yes.
So I remember telling someone that because they really were into religion. And I said, you know, Jesus was dark-skinned, eh? And you know what she said? Blasphemy.
Okay. I'm not, you know, I'm not
mentally ill, though. She was mentally ill.
Well, okay. Like most Americans. So she'd ship her down here. She'd fit right in.
No.
So
you don't have the medication to pay for her.
Maybe not.
Nah, the insurance would just kill. Okay, no. You know what, Artie?
So what's your favorite?
Talk to me about a war movie, like your go-to. Let's say you're sitting on the couch and you're like this. You're flipping.
Let's say hypothetically that I'm sitting here flipping counters.
Yeah, and you fall upon a movie. You've seen it, and you're gonna watch it again.
Well, so I mean, the movie I've watched probably half a dozen times, beginning to end, while clipping counters, is A Bridge Too Far. So that is my favorite war movie, and there's a bunch of good ones, but that's my favorite. And it's not like Saving Private Ryan, man. It would be a lot to sit through that first scene repeatedly, you know, as well done as it is and as impactful. Because I saw that in the theater. I was much too young to see A Bridge Too Far in the theater.
Oh man.
But boy, that was incredibly impactful in the theater, especially. Matt Taylor mentions We Were Soldiers. We are actually talking about that behind the scenes here, and that's a really good movie too.
I was talking to Artie I was talking to you about this one here, Glory.
Glory's so I have mixed feelings about Glory. One, it's a really good movie about a part of the American Civil War history that frequently gets ignored. Okay. It has many fine performances in it, none of which are delivered by Matthew Broderick. So, who I believe is a terrible actor and is terrible in everything except Ferris Bueller's Day Off, in which he was basically playing Matthew Broderick, and in which he's fine. So other than that, it's a great movie. Go see it.
Here's a little story. I played racquetball with Matthew Broderick.
Matthew Broderick? Did you smoke him?
I was screaming at him, Hollywood against Montreal. Come on, come on. No, he just killed me.
He's a fit young man. So
okay, Hethwill, what's going on here?
Blade Runner.
What's going on
talking
here?
About something different than I am. But Richard Kerr mentions Tora, 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 which is another one we mentioned before the show. It's a fantastic movie. The really interesting thing about Tora, Tora, Tora is first of all, I've noticed that all my favorite war movies were made in that sort of window between like 1965 and 1980. And that's another one. And it's another one of those movies where it doesn't have like a lot of big star power in it, like A Bridge Too Far does, or like The Longest Day did. But they did something really interesting. They had basically two crews and two casts one of which was American crew and American cast that filmed their stuff here in the United States. And then they had a Japanese crew and a Japanese cast that filmed the Japanese stuff in Japan. And I don't know that there's another thing comparable to that, except maybe the Clint Eastwood Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima thing. That's not quite the same thing, but it's sort of similar, I suppose.
I don't know this.
Cromwell? I actually saw a meme on Twitter from it not that long ago. Actually, I've never seen it, but isn't Richard Harris playing Cromwell in that?
I don't know, but
am I right about that?
It must be awesome.
I wasn't that big of a Richard Harris fan, actually. I think he's the second best Dumbledore. So I like the other guy better as Dumbledore. Then again, Richard Harris was actually 2.5 million years old by that time too. So there's
absolutely
the great Canadian war movies. I've never seen any of these.
I just saw Hyena Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Western. Do we have a special unannounced guest star? Dan?
I don't know. He looks like a vagrant.
Dan, you didn't tell me?
Yeah, I'm here. You hear me, Mark? Mark.
What do I have to do here? Yeah, I've got sound problems.
Okay. Artie, you can ask him about the victory thing.
See, I would have dressed up if I'd have known Mark Herman was going to be here.
No, but that's the fun of it, man.
No.
He's having sound issues.
Mark.
Let me see what I got those.
Mark. You know what? Let's go on. Mark's going to pick up. He's going to hear us.
Okay. So what's the Devil's Brigade and Passchendaele's probably about the Battle of Passchendaele.
Those are,
I would assume.
But Canadian movies by a guy called something Gross, his last name, Paul Gross.
Okay.
It's Hyena Road I saw. I didn't see Hacksaw Ridge. Hyena Road.
Oh, okay. Hacksaw Ridge is the one with Richard Garfield. And that'd be hilarious. Andrew Garfield, where he's the medic who's a conscientious objector. Now you went and lost Mark Herman. Look what you did. I won't say I've never had trouble with StreamYard. I've never had any. Never had any insurmountable trouble with it. But
I was thinking of changing, but then for some reason my credit card went through and said, "You have another year of StreamYard."
It's so expensive.
Yeah, no, Hyena Road's very good, though it went a little bit Hollywood, but it's okay. But Passchendaele, I haven't seen. I haven't even seen this, man. Even though we spoke.
So that's a David Lean movie with Alec Guinness and presumably some other people. I actually haven't seen that either. So I cannot rag you for not having seen that. It's a good movie. I'd like to see it. Maybe when it shows up on a streaming service that I'm paying for. Because that's how I watch movies nowadays. And I think that's probably true of a lot of people. Maybe less so if they're older folks, but I tend to watch movies on the internet one way or the other. The TV gets the internet too, right? So have you seen oh my god, I just had it top Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. Oh, I haven't seen the whole movie. I've seen part of it. And it's David Bowie in a sort of prisoner of war type of role, and he is amazing in it.
Okay.
I'll tell you that. I've seen enough of it to tell you that. So,
well, Hethwell asks, can you speak about Pike and Shot movies?
Pike and Shot. So what do we mean by Pike and Shot movies? I mean, what period do we mean? I mean, to me, that could be, I mean, I'd call that kind of a Renaissance period. And as far as like war movies set between, say 1400 and 1600. I'm not sure I can think of any off the top of my head. I'm sure there are some, because there's definitely some fighting in that.
Oh, that freaks me out. Too bad. I didn't see the movie. I don't want to see a war. I don't want to see a love story.
I mean, this is why everybody hated Pearl Harbor too, because it's got this really tacked in romance plot in it that's really doesn't work very well.
Here you go.
The Valley with Michael Caine.
Okay.
Does it work now?
Hey, Mark.
Hey, guys.
Hey, thanks for doing this, Mark. This is a lot of fun.
I don't know what I was having sound problems. You know how it is.
Yeah, it's it's age. I'm joking.
It's good. It's good.
Jeez.
I've had things where like something gets reset and suddenly the audio devices aren't the default audio devices anymore, and I have to go in and fix everything, and it happens.
Yeah, I find that one of the firms I work with uses WebEx a lot, and I think WebEx like kind of grabs everything and doesn't let it go real easily.
That's very believable. And on Windows, at least, Windows doesn't like multiple applications having access to the camera at the same time.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
Artie, before we go on, you wanted to ask Mark something about Victory Games?
Well, I wanted to ask about, the situation that arose with Victory Games being founded in the first place. I don't know that we have time to talk about that in detail tonight, but that was my question.
If you want, I'll answer it if you want me to.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So it's, I gotta get the year right. It would be, I came back in 81. So this would be this is the spring of 1982. And SPI was, doing poorly financially. And, the Dragon, TSR, D&D folks, came in, and I wasn't part of the executive committee. I was running the government division and just being a designer. And these guys called the Bloom brothers. I don't remember their first name, but there was two of them.
Brian and Kevin.
Yeah, that is right. And Kevin was the one I remember. He was kind of like roly-poly looking. That's all I remember. And he was in a suit that didn't fit him well. And he basically showed up and said, we're here to help. Okay, he goes away. And then, like, within 30 days of that, they, like, called the loan. Like, I mean, it was like a corporate takeover. And so then Kevin comes in, and he sits me down. He says, hey, you're going to love moving to Lake Geneva. We're going to take good care of you. And I'm like, I don't want to go to Lake Geneva. Anyway, so I just went, okay, thanks a lot, But it was very, like, it wasn't like he was offering me anything. He was like, he thought he was saving me. I don't know. So I went out and I spoke to Eric Dott from Avalon Hill, and I said, did he want a new game company I could get? And I had already talked to all the designers, everybody, and they were all, ready to go. And so I talked to Eric Dott. He said, great. And then we all resigned, and then we started Victory Games. We all quit at the same time, and we started Victory Games the next day.
So had they like shut down the New York office of SPI by that point?
Well, no, we were out. Victory Games started before they had. I mean, literally, this was like the day that they foreclosed on the loan.
Okay.
So we were within a week. We were quitting. So it didn't take me long to put it. I mean, Eric Dott was interested, and he, we had a. Well, anytime you have a willing patron, life goes better, right? So he was willing to, go for it. And so about a week later, and we were still, in the New York office. They hadn't even come close to dealing with that. And then we were gone. And I think then there was no point, and they shut the place down. But they were always going to shut the place down. They were going to, deal with the lease and, all that kind of stuff and get us out to Lake Geneva.
Okay, so it wasn't like a coup from you guys.
Well, as I said, I actually have a paycheck. I mean, I cashed it a long time ago, but for my last paycheck, I had 3 days of SPI and 2 days of TSR. And as I always tell people, as soon as I knew I was a TSR employee, I quit.
Wow.
Nobody ever asked me. Nobody said, oh, by the way, you're working for TSR now. That just was like an indentured servant. I was just coming, I guess.
Yeah, TSR is getting some bad press these days, eh?
Oh, well, that's a complete. So we're clear on that. That is a totally different group of people.
Okay.
That's the only person.
Must be gone 100 years ago.
Well, Kevin's dead. Brian, I'm not sure about.
I mean, I don't wish him any harm, and I'm sorry he's dead, but I didn't know. I actually didn't know.
Yeah, Kevin Bloom passed away a few years ago. Brian, I'm not sure about. So it would be interesting to do a comparison. I think that's beyond the scope of tonight's episode, between the acquisition of SPI and their issues that they were having, and then these, not entirely dissimilar issues that TSR themselves had some years later that led to their acquisition by Wizards of the Coast.
Well, the bottom line was the SPI problem was very simple. It was cash flow. They had gotten themselves in a situation where they couldn't generate enough cash flow from retail sales. There was no internet yet, so you don't have any of that income coming in. They were already in debt to their printer called COSI, COSI, to whatever amount of money. I don't know.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, and so and I was running the government division, so I actually was profitable. I was the only part of the SPI that was profitable because they had this that's why they brought me back. They had this contract with the U.S. Department of Defense, which I was running, and that when you run those kind of contracts, if you know what you're doing, you just there's profit. I mean, you pay all your bills and you make profit, but not enough to carry. I was only dealing with the first contract when the company was already like teetering, and in fact, when the company went down, I had already won a second contract. And we were working on it when the company went down, and so Victory Games, we had nothing. We were working on games, we had nothing for a while, and to defray costs, I took all the boys down with me to see this Army colonel who I worked for on this contract, and we get down there, and I tell him, here's the deal, SPI is bankrupt, and that's who you have a contract with. So it's not us, but because I'm who I am, I said, we're going to fulfill the contract. All you have to do is pay the expenses. Just pay for our hotel rooms. He cried. I swear to God, he cried. Because that saved him. He had no other backup plan. And they treated us very well. They were very nice people, by the way. I won't say that the people at the National Defense University are beyond first-class people. And once they knew that we were just going to fall on our swords to help them, it was like being home. They were embracing us. They loved us. And they just paid our bills, and we ran the contract, and that was it.
So, Mark, on to more interesting things.
Sure.
I'm joking, Mark.
Whatever you want to talk about. You've been trying to get me on the show. I said I'd love to. You just got to organize it when I can do it. And here I am, right?
Well, you know what? Stump us with a movie. A war movie, that is.
Yeah, but when I say stump us, I mean, what is do I give you hints like a concentration?
No, I'm sure you know a war movie that we don't know.
That the rest of us peasants have not seen.
I got to be honest with you. I am certainly a moviegoer, but I doubt that you guys are way smarter than me on this one. I mean, have you guys ever seen the movie Sink to Bismarck? I mean,
yes.
I haven't actually.
Yes.
Okay.
I've heard the song though.
I really enjoyed that.
One of my favorite. This is a Kevin Moore, I think, is the famous British actor, right? I think it's the famous British actor, and it was also a leading lady who was played like the Wren in the movie or whatever that But it's based now. The movie is based on the C.S. Forester book, which is a fabulous. It's like a novelization of history, but it's pretty darn close to what happened. But that's a great book and it's a great movie. So if you haven't seen Sink to Bismarck, that should be high on your list.
It is on my list.
I mean, obviously you saw the original Seven Samurai in Japanese.
Oh no, that was fantastic.
Yeah. Yep.
Mark, let me ask you something.
Sure.
And you know what? I'm just watching it now. Gettysburg. What do you think?
You mean the Ted Turner one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and believe it or not, I actually once got to speak to Ted Turner about that movie at a Gettysburg function once. But it is a movie that is, first off, it's very well done. The
yes.
uniforms and all that. So it's overall a very well done movie. But it could have used, 40 minutes of more editing.
I just thought, as an outsider, as a non-American, I just thought it was too Americana. Though it is Americana, but it was too axed.
Americans killing America.
Oh,
what else do you want?
It was too axed on.
Not a Canadian in sight.
It was too axed on what the general said, and then the music came in, the angels, and it's like.
Well, it's a weirdly structured movie in some ways because you don't have you have a different, so there's like a Union side of the movie and a Confederate side of the movie, and the Union side of the movie is much more, here's these guys on the ground,
like as if they knew what they were doing
the first
more.
day. And then the Confederate side of the movie is here's General Lee and Longstreet and General Heath and all these guys.
Did you read the book? Did you read the Shara book, the original?
Yes.
Okay, so if you read the book, I think broadly the movie, that's kind of the way the book was written a little bit, right? So I think that they just that's their screenplay.
Yes.
Yeah. So
that's my assumption.
No, that's why I didn't. But I think that the movie, the Pickett's Charge stuff, is really well done, but it's too long. I mean, that Pickett's Charge scene could have been a little bit more impactful. Like the best scene in the movie, of course, is the right before the intermission where you have the defense of little Round Top, and that's the best part of the movie. And I happen to be a big Jeff Daniels fan, and I think that they really captured the tension and all that. It's close enough to the history, to be reasonable. But the Pickett's Charge. Now, what's impressive about the Pickett's Charge is they actually got like 15,000 guys, which is about the size of the action. So you actually visually, they actually fired off 50 cannon. So the bombardments, the size of the bombardment, there hasn't been 50 smoothbore guns fired in North America since the Battle of Gettysburg. So they got every freaking cannon there must be in North America into that movie, and they fired them off once, which was kind of impressive to see what that even looks like. And they did have about 15,000 guys in uniform, rambling across the field, which was, you get to see what 15,000 guys looks like. So that part was kind of cool, right? Almost like archaeology, experimental archaeology, but it didn't have the drama that I thought that part should have had. So I thought that was not as well directed. But
I mean, was there that much artillery in Pickett? There was that much artillery.
Sure, that was about right. Yeah, the battery that Lieutenant Colonel Alexander put together to bombard Little Round Top was in that ballpark. Yeah.
And Stigler said something on the comments. He said there should have been more blood. I agree.
Yeah,
because that was horrible.
Product of its time, maybe on that. And remember that a lot of all these 15,000 guys, I think they got every Civil War reenactor in North America too.
Probably.
So these guys, are not. They're reenactors. They're good at what they do, but they're not professional stuntmen or anything like that. You got to be careful with them. Some of them are in, physical conditions similar to myself.
If you look carefully, there's a lot of Johnny Rebs who look like they're eating a lot better than the
Yeah, it's a well-fed Confederate army.
Well-fed Confederates over there.
And I don't know, they made the rebels look really I thought they made the rebels look stupid, especially Lee when he's in his thoughts. Like, I don't know, what is he praying when he's going down? He's saying, I hope this guy. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe it's me.
So again, I always go back to this is Jeff Shara's. It's Jeff, right? Or was his father? I forget which one.
No, Michael. Michael wrote the.
Michael's the son, right? So Jeff Shara is the father who passed away, but Jeff Shara is that's the book, So again, I come back to the screenplay is following that perspective. That whether that's the right, the history. Look, I literally have 50 books on Gettysburg is probably not an exaggeration, and I've read all of them. And so there's a lot of different perspectives on the Battle of Gettysburg. And I have one book that's just on the artillery at Gettysburg, and one just at the cavalry on the first day at Gettysburg, and command control on the first day at Gettysburg. I mean, there's so many darn books on the Battle of Gettysburg from every different angle. So to say that the Confederates look stupid or whatever, I mean, that was the thing that Shar was pushing in his book, Killer Angels is the name of the book. Which, by the way, if you haven't read Killer Angels, it's just I mean, I used to give it out for a leadership course because it kind of gives you a lot of sense. It's a really good book. So if you haven't read it,
easy read too, I thought.
Oh yeah, you read that in. I mean, if you get it, if you like it, you'll probably read it in like 2 or 3 sessions. It's just not. It just moves. But anyway, the point is that Jeff was playing. The Lee was having an angina attack, kind of having heart failure problems at the battle, and because he's cold, they were playing Lee a certain way, and they were playing Longstreet a certain way. And I've read Longstreet wrote his own memoir on that battle and what happened, and and none of that's represented in the movie. But Longstreet has his own view of what happened, and of course the big controversy was Jubal Early. Wrote after the war. Wrote some. When I say after the war, I mean like right after the war. He wrote some scathing criticisms of Longstreet at Gettysburg, and Longstreet then fired back, and so there was a famous yell and screaming match between Early and Longstreet, for like 10 years after the war over, who screwed up the Battle of Gettysburg.
Well, man, what Matt Taylor says here, going back to artillery, the Union had 360 cannons and the Confederates 280.
Right,
well,
but they didn't all fire at the
at the Round Top.
Yeah, those numbers look correct. Remember, I just did a Gettysburg game for Roger McGowan, right? And if you go back into there's something I'm going to call it the OR, but the OR is short for the official records of the rebellion. Okay, just so to fill you guys in. I know some people know this, but I apologize if you don't. But I figure I got a lot of Canadians here, so I want to be respectful. So the OR is 125 volumes. It was produced by an act of Congress in like 1866 or 1867. It was not completed until 1904 or 1905, and it is. Imagine something written over that many years. They started the indexing for it and finding anything is like mind-boggling. But it is the actual correspondence from the war. That's what they preserved all of it, or all that they could find, which is a lot, but 125 volumes of it. So you read the Gettysburg, and by the way, the Gettysburg volumes is 3 volumes for Gettysburg, and General Hunt. And who was the commander of the Union, the general in charge of Union Artillery Reserve, which is a lot of those 300 some odd guns, and because their guns were organized differently than the Confederates, and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander, who was really not at the same level, but he was as close as he sort of functioned as an ad hoc, general of the Artillery Reserve, and I believe that the initial bombardment, of those 280 guns, I think about, maybe I can look it up, but it's a certain like 70, 80 guns was probably the most that they used on that bombardment. Because, you can only cram so many guns pointing at the same spot. They only shoot about a mile, all that kind of nonsense. And I have exact ammunition usage. That's one of the best documented battles on artillery ammunition usage. So that's what I used in my Gettysburg game for McGowan. So, yeah, but to see 50 cannon or so, you can count them. I haven't looked at a movie in a while. My daughter inherited a copy of what? Of my game? Thanks, Keith. Anyway, the point is that, seeing 50 guns go off in North America, at any time. And by the way, just for nostalgia. So when this movie was initially in the theaters, I actually saw it with Richard Berg and Gene Billingsley was visiting me, and Richard came up, and all 3 of us went to see the movie together in New York, and Berg was hysterical. Berg couldn't shut up for 2 seconds if he liked it, and so we're sitting there, and he goes, "Look at that beard! He looks like an idiot," or just going on.
Oh man.
The commentary is it was like watching the equivalent of Gettysburg, the Rocky Horror Show edition.
Well, the movie definitely does have, shall we say, an interesting facial hair budget.
Well,
yeah.
So
now,
Tom Berenger, particularly, I don't know. Tom Berenger must have used the bargain brand version of a beard for that.
Man, he didn't even look like Tom Berenger, but whatever. But you were talking about books on Gettysburg, and you didn't mention Shelby Foote. Is that not?
Oh, no, wait. Shelby Foote, first off, is a 3-volume history of it's called the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it is what we call the Victory Games version is named after. It's called the Civil War.
Okay.
So there is certainly in volume 2, there's a long section on Gettysburg in it, but that covers the whole war. I don't count that as one of the 50 Gettysburg books. That's a book on the Civil War.
Right.
Well, 3 volumes of the Civil War, obviously. The one that if we're talking about books for a second on the Civil War, there's a famous American historian named Bruce Catton, Catton, and Bruce Catton wrote a great 3-volume set. But Bruce Catton wrote almost like, when he wrote, it was almost like poetry. I mean, his writing style was just, just a step above everybody. Although Shelby Foote, remember, is a novelist trained by Williams, the famous playwright.
Tennessee Williams.
Tennessee Williams.
Seriously.
Was a mentor of Shelby Foote, who
bloody hell.
And Shelby Foote was mentored by Tennessee Williams, and Shelby Foote was a novelist until he somehow got roped into doing the Civil War thing. So that wasn't even his thing. And if you get like the original, I have an original first edition of it. There's a picture of him in the first volume. And he looks like, a reasonably healthy 40-year-old guy. And in the last volume, it took him 20 years to write it. He looks like, he's been beat up with a stick.
Oh man! But would you put any weight on his on the authority of Gettysburg from Shelby Foote?
Oh yeah, Shelby Foote is very. I haven't heard any significant or useful criticism.
But didn't he ornament a little bit too much?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. He's got a point of view. But
look,
so a lot of people.
Yeah, you speak.
A lot of people want to put Shelby Foote in that sort of lost cause mythology, and I don't think that actually fits in Foote's case. There is such a thing as that, but I don't think it applies to Foote. I don't think that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to tell the story, and he was a very good writer. He was a very, very good at narrative because he was a novelist. So it is.
Just to be clear, the sub title of the book, it's The Civil War, a Narrative. That's the actual title of the book. So he's now, and so just so you know, the American author, and who I actually sat on the board of directors of the Gettysburg Foundation with for a short while, Gary Gallagher, Professor Gary Gallagher, is a big, he's still very active. He's still teaching, and he's got a great. If you go on those great courses, he teaches a course on the Civil War, which I recommend if you haven't heard it. Gary Gallagher is one of the best authors who really understands the history of the lost cause, and he really doesn't. If anybody, I think he does the best job of debunking it. But he's definitely I think he's the best current living historian on, how did the lost cause, narrative come about, and what were its elements and all of that, and then debunking it. So he's one of the biggest. So if you want to understand that part, look at Gary Gallagher.
I know we're supposed to be talking about movies, but I have one more question on Gettysburg. What the hell was it?
So there was the Battle of Gettysburg.
Oh yeah, on Gettysburg. That was the turning point because anybody could have won there. Is that right?
Okay, so the reason that Gettysburg was certainly a 3-day, I think 35,000 casualties. It's a bloody battle. 3 days. Huh?
68,000, I heard.
Oh yeah, that sounds.
I heard 60. I don't know why I got 68,000 in my head.
Well, I don't know what I have no idea what's in your head. First off,
and neither does Dan.
Wait, how many people died?
Guys, I gotta step out a second. My dog is barking like a son of a bitch.
Okay. Yeah, I was 40. Yeah, I was going to say 50,000. It's 51,000 according to some Google search here. Yeah, 28,000 Confederates, 23,000 Union. That sounds ballpark right.
I mean, this is a question that's been debated by people literally since July 5th, 1862. What was the Gettysburg, the result at Gettysburg, more impactful on the course of the war than the next day at Vicksburg?
Well, I think that there are various turning points, but certainly the combination of Gettysburg and Vicksburg, on the same 4 days, was significant. It's certainly, but let's remember that the greatest Southern victory of the war is, the last big victory that they just did a game on is Chickamauga, which comes in, that's September, and then by November they're getting kicked out of there. So the war had a lot of action. I think if you want to say what I will tell you, the most significant turning point above all others in the Civil War was the fall of Atlanta. And then you question, why is that so insignificant? Well, the answer was Lincoln was up for re-election against McClellan, the Democratic nominee. And at the moment in the polls, it looked like Lincoln was going to lose. And then Atlanta falls and he wins the election. So if you look at it from like what could have actually changed the outcome, Lincoln losing the election would have changed the outcome. And he doesn't because of Atlanta. So I think I always come back and think that's the most significant.
That's really interesting. Okay.
That's the most, I mean, just from that perspective. That's not to say that, you know, the events of July 1st through 3rd for Gettysburg and July 4th for Vicksburg were significant because the morale of the Union goes up. You know, again, play for the people. Your strategic will is going to rise after winning, you know, knocking out a Confederate army and winning a big battle. You're going to have a, you know, your strategic will is going to surge in for the people.
Mark, is that ever going to happen again in the States?
What's that?
Civil War?
I'm not even going to go there.
I hope not.
Okay, it was a question.
It's definitely a question.
Look, the answer is are there a lot of people trying to let me tell you what was figured. They figured out how you could steal an election. They didn't do it the last time, but they definitely figured out how to do it. So now will they pull it off? I don't know. I still believe I'm an optimist in that regard, but as far as, you know, people pulling out guns and shooting each other like in Handmaid's Tale kind of thing, I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's because
I can tell you something. One of the problems we got in New York is we've got plenty of guns. So if people want to come and overthrow the state of New York, knock yourself out. We're ready. You know, we got plenty. This. You know, you go down and where I was born in Brooklyn. You bring your AR-15. See what hell happens in Brooklyn.
Well, okay. I guess let's get back into movies, or else people are going to scream at
me.
Wait,
so, what is your Duce? What is your favorite war movie? I mean, what's your favorite one yet?
You know, I didn't think I had one, but I keep coming back all the time, and it's Patton.
Good movie. Good choice.
And you know, compared to Gettysburg in terms of Americana, I'm gonna say, okay, I'm Canadian. Everything's Americana, for God's sake. Anyways, in terms of that, he just looked more graceful, more, you know, we were happy that the Americans were there. Let's go, you know, let's go. And yeah, whatever. I love the Patton.
I will tell you, I have a Patton story, a real one. So when I was much younger, not even married yet, let me tell you how long ago that was. I was working as a defense consultant. And I was working for this general named William Depew, D-E-P-E-P-U-Y. Four-star general.
Peppy for short.
Yeah. Anyway, General Depew was fought in World War II in Patton's Fourth Army. You know, Third Army. You know, I think it's the Third Army. So he fought in Patton's Third Army, and he worked for him as a staff officer for a while. So he knew him. And he told me, I swear to God, he said the reason Patton cursed all the time was he had a squeaky voice, and he wanted to sound like Puffer, but he had like a high pitched voice in real life. So he cursed a lot to sort of deal with it. The fact that he had a funny sounding voice. That's what he told me. Now I love the part, but I believe this guy. So General Depew told me that.
I love the part when he's in his room and there's the ministers are there and they see a Bible on his bedside and they say, "Oh, George, you read the Bible?" Every goddamn day.
I will say that as good as George C. Scott is in that movie, and it is like one of the all-time great movie performances, I think. I think Carl Malden is just as good.
Oh yeah, look, you don't get a movie that good without I mean, everybody who played, you know, the guys who played Beetle Smith and everybody, you know, it was very, very. The guy who played Montgomery. I mean, it was very, very well done.
Who did Carl Malden play? I forget.
Bradley.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
which is pretty inspired casting too.
Oh wait, do you know who won the Oscar for the screenplay for that?
No.
Wait, hold on. Francis Ford Coppola.
That is the right answer. And Francis Ford Coppola he wrote the screenplay. Now, you know that opening scene?
Yeah.
So apparently, if I understand the story, I could get this wrong, but apparently that opening scene, which is so famous, he had in the original screenplay. And after they saw it, they said, "This is crap," and they fired him. he didn't find out that they had used his script and he won the Oscar until afterwards. It was
That's
like a
ridiculous.
surprise.
What?
Yeah,
Man, that's so show business. It's not even funny.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Coppola, I saw it in a Coppola interview once. There was some weird thing where he wasn't aware that they had used the scene or that they had used his. Yes, Kyle Reese is saying, no way you work for General Depew. It's not, it doesn't have an E in it, by the way. The predecessor of General John Starr, the answer is yes. That is true. In fact, I was given a personal education by General Depew on, I mean, I got my Army Staff College education from General Depew.
Jesus,
he was always talking and I was just listening, taking notes. I mean, he's great guy.
That's all. That's insane. That's whoa.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, in my life, I got to the Pentagon at a time that a lot of famous, men, they were all men. I apologize for that, but that was the reality of the time. I was a very brash, like 21-year-old, and for some reason, a lot of them just took a shine to me. And I was given I had mentors. I was mentored by a guy who was the deputy science advisor to Reagan. Doing mathematical.
That's fantastic.
I mean, it's just crazy. Admiral Sobrowski, and it just the cast of characters that made forget about. I got a graduate degree education that you couldn't get because it was just one-on-one with these guys, and they were just amazing. And for whatever reason, they were very generous with their time, and and the advice and how to think about things, and it was amazing. And they all told great stories.
Now these guys, Mark, these generals and all that, do they just when they make a decision? Obviously, it's well thought of, but is it? I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Are these guys very? Do these guys suffer fools? These guys at all?
I gotta tell you something. When you meet a 4-star general, I mean, you can meet a 1-star. 1-star generals are amazing, but 4-star generals are like 3 orders of magnitude different kind of person.
And why is that? Is it the pressure?
Well, no. Remember, it's a
hierarchy.
In the United States military at any given time. I mean, it changes, but there's 35 4-star admirals and generals in total. So, out of an organizational structure of 3 million people, you have risen from 3 million to 35. Think about the vetting process and the So, yes, it's not that they don't suffer fools because the people who hired them wouldn't suffer fools.
I don't see these guys having any sense of humor. I think I'd fail.
They're all different, but when you see them in public, these are not. They're very serious in public.
Yeah,
I mean,
public figures,
even the ones that I've been close to a few 4-stars, and they had senses of humor. Get me, but not like Jerry Lewis kind of sense of humor. Kind of subtle stuff usually.
Okay. And didn't you once tell me that you spoke with the attaché of Rommel? Yeah,
you're talking about von Mellenthin.
I have no idea.
Well, no, so if you look it up, it's called Panzer Battles.
Okay.
By General von Mellenthin. He was the G2 to Rommel during part of the Africa Corps campaign.
That's incredible.
Yeah, 12 O'Clock High, by the way. I'm looking at John Long.
I've never seen it.
Great movie.
I've never seen that either.
Oh, you've never seen? Oh, well.
No.
It's by the way, probably the first movie I can think of that had PTSD as a central theme in the movie.
Was that with Gregory Peck, where he felt for his men?
Gregory Peck, yeah.
I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of movies I haven't seen. So,
well, Hethwell said something concerning the Civil War, a movie.
Somebody also mentioned The Longest Day, which is a good movie.
Oh, it's a good movie. I mean, every leading man in Hollywood of that day was in that movie.
Even the ones they didn't hire, like Richard Burton.
Everybody. And by the way, a lot of the big famous actors. By the way, talking about war movies, so this is not a movie, but it's close. The Combat, the TV series Combat.
Yes.
Vic Morrow, Rick Jason. Yeah. I have all the seasons. I watch it all the time. But every leading man and a couple of famous, foreign actresses, in particular French ones and German ones, it's got like, I think it was like 5. Well, remember, 5 seasons in that period of time is really like 10 because a season was a whole year. Now a season's like, just one half of the year.
Yeah,
so
or less.
There's like 5, or I think there's like 7 seasons. So it was on for a long time. It was on through all the 60s and into the early 70s.
Even between like the 80s and now, I mean, seasons of TV are 13 episodes now.
Oh yeah, no, these are a lot more than that. I have the DVDs. I watch them periodically, and some of them are just and it's all shot in black and white until the very end because they were using World War II footage, which is all black and white mostly.
Right.
So you've got a lot of the things like they'll start off. A lot of the combat start off like with like guys manning big guns and firing guns, you know, and it's all World War II footage, you know. And the guy who wrote it was a World War II rifleman, you know, GI rifleman wrote the series. So he had the actual them running around and stuff is not stupid. And on top of that, those guys were not using. They were actually using like the guys were running. They were setting off explosions around them, you know, not to hit them, but they're using real explosives you know, in the vicinity of actors, which I don't think they can even do nowadays.
Nah. Too big of a union.
They wouldn't. They would just. It's probably cheaper to just do it digitally.
Exactly.
What's this Ride with the Devil? I don't know what that is.
Oh, so Ride with the Devil. I want to say, isn't that one of the not Mosby? It's one of the Missouri Guerrilla movies, isn't it?
Like Mosby?
No, Mosby was in the East, but it's more like. Wait, I Ride. 1999 film cast.
When I see that, I think of The Devil Rides Out, which is a very different.
I love that movie. And it's funny here, the Battle of Algiers. Yeah, Jeff.
By the way, just so you know, the Battle of Algiers is an extraordinary movie. It was part of. I used to teach at Georgetown University. It was part of the curriculum. The movie itself. The students had to watch it. But what's really spooky? If you watch the movie, there's a scene where the bombers with the girls teaching how to set up the bombs and the bicycles scene, right? That guy is the real guy. If you look at the credits, so-and-so playing himself. So when he's telling these girls how to use these bombs, that's what he did in real life. I mean, this is exactly how it happened.
So how did they get that guy to do that?
That's authenticity. Well, so I forget what it's called, but some years after World War II, like in the maybe early 50s or something like that, they made a movie about the battle at Arnhem that had a bunch of actual British First Airborne people, including John Frost was in it.
Oh, John Frost, that's impressive.
And you guys
by
know
the way, just going back, Ride with the Devil is about the 1st Missouri Irregulars. It is guerrilla fighting it is guerrilla fighting, but I think the big thing was it had a really stupid love interest in it. I saw it. Oh, Jewel is in it. That's who the singer Jewel. Oh. I think isn't she Canadian?
In the Battle of Algiers?
No, the actress.
She plays she's really known for being a songwriter.
Yeah, she's a songwriter. Very good.
But she apparently plays the love interest in Ride with the Devil.
Oh, but going back to the Battle of Algiers.
I take it back. She wasn't born in Canada, but close. She was born in Alaska. I knew it was close. I knew it was far.
Hey, Alaska, Canada, Minnesota. What's
the same thing?
we was robbed. But anyways. But going back to the Battle of Algiers.
To the Russians.
Do you know who did the music for that?
For what?
For the Battle of Algiers.
Don't.
Ennio Morricone.
Who just passed away not that long ago, actually.
No, don't tell me that. I didn't know that.
What?
He's not dead.
Didn't you do a musical tribute video to him? Was that not you?
Is it me?
Yes, it was you. You had a big extended segment about the legend Ennio Morricone has passed. Okay, it was like a half an hour extra in the weekly episode.
Okay.
What do you mean first you've heard of it?
Okay. Jesus.
That's funny.
That hit me hard again. But anyways.
Sorry. Didn't mean to bring it up again.
Anyway, to Jeff Beeler, I've seen the Battle of Algiers at least. I taught for that certain number. I've seen the movie at least 6 times because I had each semester. I had to look at it again.
So those are the Frenchies that are trying to.
Yeah, well, I got a good game pairing is Battle of Algiers and play Colonial Twilight, or Brian Train's game called, I think it's just called CS Algiers or CS something or other in French. I don't know what the title is.
Oh, is that a Tiny Battle Publishing thing?
Might be.
It's a very good game, right? It's a small portfolio.
The original was small, but there was another one. Maybe King Kanger did one also. There's been a couple of games. There's about 2 or 3 games on it, but a great book pairing with the Battle of Algiers. Of course, the book we used in school was A Savage War of Peace by Alistair Horn. I think it's Alistair Horn's book, but that's a great book. That was part of required reading.
You know, Patchwork says that it was actually banned in France.
I can see that. Well, remember, there's a lot of films of French torture. French torturing people.
Yeah, but I thought they were a democratic. I love you. Drink some wine, people. What the hell is this?
I don't know that it's still banned. It was probably banned at the time. I don't know if it's still banned. The world's changed.
Would you say The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is a war movie, Artie?
No. There's a war. There's a war scene in it, but no, I wouldn't say so. It's one of my favorite movies, though.
Yeah, it's a great. My wife's favorite movie is the Outlaw Josie Wales, where he is in the movie, early part of the movie. He's a Missouri guerrilla. Yeah. Shooting up the.
That's just as much of a war movie. I
could reenact a scene of that right now, and you know what? I will. When he walks in and the 2 guys, look what we got here. We got us Josie Wales. Now don't you move, Josie.
I know that's a great scene.
I know your Oscar is in the mail.
Yeah.
Ethel mentions there's also, I wouldn't call a war movie, but it's got a couple really cool scenes in it. Barry Lyndon. This is one of the forgotten Stanley Kubrick movies.
Yeah, and also has a pretty decent representation of the Battle of Minden, if I recall correctly. By the way, the banning in France, I just found it on the Battle of Algiers movie, not Barry Lyndon. Put no obstacles in the way. Where is it? It's only banned, by the way, just so you know, it was only banned for 3 months.
You know what? Just it being banned for 1 day for me is,
whatever. Look, I'm not saying it was a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just giving the fact it was banned for 3 months. So a lot of French people did get to see it eventually.
Mark, you ever see that movie, the North Korean movie called Taegukgi?
Nope.
Yeah, it's I think Artie, is it about the North Korean Civil War or something?
Did you say North Korean movie?
Yeah, no.
Well, then I definitely haven't seen it. There is a South Korean movie that I'm aware of, and
that's what I mean.
Well, it's the one about the 2 South Korean soldiers that end up on the beach at Normandy.
What?
Yeah, that's a historical thing. They got captured. They got captured by the Japanese. Somehow they ended up in Soviet hands, and then somehow they got captured by Germans. And they ended up in one of the Ost battalions, and the Americans show up, and these 2 Korean guys are on the beach, manning a turret somewhere on Omaha Beach.
No, it sounds like Wind Talkers.
Yeah, no, it sounds crazy, but it actually is a thing that occurred.
No,
I forget the name of the movie.
Look, Stigler's never wrong.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, he's never wrong. That movie, Mark, I strongly suggest that movie.
Which one?
Taegukgi.
There's a Japanese movie about Yamamoto that I'd kind of like to see. Isukuru, I think it's called. But from the last 10, 15 years or so. I've seen clips of it. It's an impressive looking movie. I've never seen Zulu. That's on my very short list of things to watch.
Wow. Michael Caine's first movie. That's an amazing movie.
I've got to see it.
That's his first movie?
Oh. Yes, I believe it says in the beginning of the credits, it says introducing Michael Caine.
Introducing Michael Caine. Wow. What did it come out in 1902?
All right, hang on.
No, it's in the 60s, I'm pretty sure, but
it was the 60s.
Yeah, early 60s, I want to say. Maybe even late 50s.
But the movie is 1964. And it's got an amazing cast, but Michael Caine's in it, James Booth, Ulla Jacobson, Jack Hawkins was the big actor in it, and Stanley Baker. But Jack Hawkins was a big actor in that period.
We're talking about Zulu, is that right?
Yeah, Zulu now, which is the Battle of Rorke's Drift.
What, Zulu Dawn?
Now, Zulu Dawn is the prequel to Zulu that was produced after it, and it's about the Battle of Isla Wanda, which is the battle that preceded the siege of Rorke's Drift.
But didn't that happen like a couple of days within each other? Yeah,
that is correct. Yeah. So the Zulu culture had this, they had this religious thing that if you fight in a battle and you kill somebody, after the battle, you have to go back somewhere and expunge, you have to clean your soul or something. So after it was Luanda, a lot of the Zulu troops head home to, cleanse the soul. And so then the rest of these guys who had showed up late or, hadn't gotten in the action are the ones who go forward and they run. So what happened, in the big picture is the British are launching, a campaign into Zululand, and they cross this river, and which is where the mission, the Rorke's Drift, like a mission, I think. And their job, the reason they had a Chard is an engineer. So he's supposed to build build a bridge. They're supposed to build a bridge there at this location. And then the troops go forward and they get crushed at Luanda. And then the Zulus, pursue, and they run into these guys trying to build a bridge who fall into the, they do the whole, fighting, under a crazy, they do like a, an Alamo kind of thing, except that they live. Basically it.
Well, John Longshore asks, so who were the bad guys, the Zulus or the English? I'm going to say the English without question.
Well, they're usually the bad guys, admittedly.
Hey, look, the answer at the end of the day is that, the British were the
colonialists, yeah.
The colonialists, and, look, I got to be honest with you. One of the biggest problems you find in modern Africa and a lot of problems is that Europeans, divvied up the whole place, right? And for Europeans, rivers are boundaries. Here's this river. This is the boundary between, my colony and your colony. Except that Africa, because of its terrain and its, it's really a series of river cultures. Even the Egyptians, and you've got all these rivers. And what happens with a river is people live on both sides of the river.
Mm-hmm.
That's just natural. So when you put a line between the culture, you throw half the, some number of the people go this way and some people are stuck that way. And then they're stuck with a bunch of people who are on the wrong side of the river, and they didn't like each other in the first place. And so you got these weird, majority minority cultures that are not based on the actual how it rose over history. And then the British, who were brilliant at running, an empire, would find out who was the smallest minority who would die without them, who would get crushed, and they made them the bureaucrats. And so when the British leave, you have this culture where all the people, the well-educated people who know how to run the country, are the minority party, and the majority is being, kind of put down by the minority party. And the Boers, in South Africa, were just a white, a German Dutch expression of that, and same problem. So those are some of the deep-rooted problems of Africa from the colonial era. So it's a mess. Oh, what's a great movie? Das Boot.
Yes, of course.
That's a great movie. We mentioned that before the show. Fantastic film. There's a I guess there's a remake or sequel or something from the last couple of years that was on German television.
Yeah, I gotta tell you,
series.
Yeah.
My wife, when I was first married, that movie came out, and I actually talked her into going to the movie. And her reaction to the movie was, I would have preferred to poke my eyes out with a knife once he responds to the movie. So recently, it was coming out. Oh, my God. I said to her, do you want to watch Das Boot? And she goes, I'd rather kill myself.
Man, you got to give it to her. She sat through the movie, man.
Under no circumstances could I talk my wife into that movie.
First year of marriage was a whole different ballgame than after 42 years. 42 years, she got nothing to prove. In fact, she just looked at me and go, get the hell out of here.
What about Stalingrad, Mark? Stalingrad. I think it was made by the same director, if I'm not mistaken.
No, well, I don't know. So I'm thinking the movie called Enemy at the Gates.
No, Stalingrad.
I don't know.
So this is the German. I'm looking into this now. There's a Stalingrad 1993 film, which I think is the one I saw at some independent theater in Cleveland. And there's a Stalingrad 2013 film, which looks like it is a Russian film. And I haven't seen that. I've seen the German one, and I've seen Enemy at the Gates as well, which is an okay movie, but it's kind of takes it on faith that the Russian propaganda story about the snipers was true.
And hey, by the way, good news: the 2013 version is available on Netflix. I can watch it. I'm going to watch it now.
Oh, that's
right now, but I'm going to watch it soon now. That's cool. Thanks. Good.
Hold on.
So
But
yeah, it's not
very good.
This one here.
That's the one I've seen.
No. That's the one you saw. I'm talking about the 2013 one, which is more recent. Is the
that
one I'm
one
talking
good?
The Russian one. Yeah.
I don't know. It's Stalingrad, but it's the
one
one that's
Dan's showing here is the 1990s one, the German one.
Did you like that one?
I thought it was a good movie. Yeah. Not
Let's
seeing
see.
that on Netflix.
You know, I was watching a German series. I don't know what I forget what it was. It seemed really good to me till I spoke to a Polish guy. He just said, "That's crap. That's crap. They did this, and I was like, "Holy cow!" Okay.
Was that Generation War?
No. It was.
Okay.
I seen it on YouTube, and it was really well done. And man, the historicity, the guy just.
Oh, best war movie of all time is obviously Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, that's a good movie. But it's not. It's obviously, it's alternate history there.
It's
Slightly.
And I mean,
But
I was.
Oh, wait, just so you know, the Stalingrad movie you saw was the 1993 German one is available on Prime Video.
Oh, well, that's cool too. I have that too. I wouldn't mind seeing that again. I haven't seen it since the mid '90s.
Well, I got two movies I got to see now. This is already worth the price of admission, boys.
well, I mean, you got to check out IDD, that's for sure.
Not exactly a war movie.
One of my favorite movies of all time, and also a really great war movie, is Kingdom of Heaven.
That's good.
You're into the Crusades.
Was that Jim Carrey?
No.
Orlando Bloom and Eva Green are the leads in that one.
Yeah.
What's the setting?
Bird freaking hated that. He goes, "It's so inaccurate." I said, "Look, they got some names right. They got some Arabs, but it's a great movie."
The guy, it's definitely worth watching the extended version, which actually makes a lot more narrative sense. The theatrical cut is it's baffling flow problems. There's one super cheap moment in the film where Orlando Bloom, it's toward the end, and he's given this inspiring speech, and they reuse a music cue from another movie.
That's crap.
They reuse Valhalla Viking Victory from Jerry Goldsmith's score to the 13th Warrior, and it's one of my favorite soundtracks. And I'm like,
hold on a second, Artie.
What?
Being a music aficionado, Jerry Goldsmith, right?
Yeah.
He stole it from Wagner. All right.
It's Wagnerian, but that's the point. It's about Vikings. I mean, yeah.
Oh, and speaking of Vikings, another great movie, which is not a war movie, but it's called The Vikings. The one with Kirk Douglas.
That's a good movie.
Oh, that's a good movie. But
I gotta see it.
It's a good fun movie. Ernest Borgnine plays the recent Vikings TV series, which is weird, but whatever. The main central character, at least when the series starts, is this guy Ragnar Lothbrok, and that individual is an actual historical figure played by Ernest Borgnine in the Kirk Douglas Vikings film.
Oh, right. In the I was just saying,
he's
blown dead.
The pit of serpents to be executed by King Aella. It's neat.
13th Warrior. I've heard of that.
I like that movie a lot. It is a troubled film. It sat on a shelf after it had been filmed for a couple of years, and you could tell just by watching it that it was badly mangled in the editing process.
Yeah, it's probably.
But it has a wonderful soundtrack.
Yeah, it's probably because Weinstein, didn't have any time to look at movies. He was in hotels. But anyways, did I just say that?
I have no idea if he was involved in that at all. I really have no idea.
I don't know. I'm just reading American news.
So, if anybody hasn't seen it, The Death of Stalin, which is hilarious.
That's a comedy, right?
Yeah, it's a very black comedy, but it's based on all actual events. Is on Netflix.
By the way, another movie that you may not have heard of, which is really an interesting movie, and it's one of Burt Lancaster's. It's kind of like surrealistic comedy, but it's called Castle Keep. It's more in the line of Kelly's Heroes. It's more like that kind of movie.
Oh, okay.
But it's really worth a watch. Sidney Pollack movie, but it's really pretty good.
Okay, no, Burt Lancaster? I was thinking of what's that movie there? He's on the beach.
On the Beach?
No, not the movie On the Beach. By the way, did you see On the Beach?
It's been long. Watched it in high school.
On the Beach is about the nuclear war, but it's called It's the one, it's Pearl Harbor. It's like
From Here to
From Here to
Eternity.
Eternity? Yeah.
From Here to
Okay.
Eternity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true story. So that's written by Jones. What's his name?
Terry Jones?
wrote the book. The book is written. Here to Eternity is written by.
That was definitely not Terry Jones.
Not Terry Jones, no.
Dan, was Annette Funicello in the movie you're thinking of by any chance?
James Jones wrote From Here to Eternity. And James Jones had a daughter named Callie Jones. And when I first met my wife, we were friends. She was in a play called Little Mary Sunshine. And Callie Jones, who's James Jones's daughter, was in the show. And I went to see it. And so I actually have a production shot of my wife, and Callie Jones is down the hall there. But Callie Jones is in the shot. So that's James Jones's daughter. And I think she's become a writer of some note. So she's a talented, pretty lady back, when she was 16 years old. She was gorgeous, but I'm sure she's quite good looking still, but very talented, more importantly. And she was very nice. I remember her. But Here to Eternity is a great movie. What was the one that somebody just popped up? I saw something pop up. MASH. Oh yeah, that's a good. I mean, that's just a classic. Yeah, that's a black comedy.
It's a kind of a weird situation because you always want to. At least I always want to compare it to the show, which was a cultural juggernaut in its own right for many years, and eventually drifted thematically away from the film. I'd say. I would assume that the 13th Warrior did in fact cost tons and tons of money to make.
But what's the setting of the 13th Warrior?
So it is about an Arab in roughly 900 AD or 1000 AD, and he ends up being exiled, but he's important enough that he can't just be killed. So he gets exiled to be the ambassador to some foreign people, and he gets dragged off by a group of Varangian Rus or Viking Rus in somewhere in what is now the Balkans or Russia, and he dragged up to the homeland where they fight Grendel and Grendel's mother, basically.
Mark,
it's sort of a retelling of
that's like a Beowulf kind of thing, right?
Yeah, so what it's based on a Michael Crichton book, and what Crichton did is he takes the actual narrative of Ibn Fadlan, which is who was a real individual and which survives, and who had this sort of very civilized person's perspective on this Viking funeral that he went to. And Crichton takes that and then combines it with what if Beowulf was real? How would that have played out? So Ibn Fadlan goes up to play with the Vikings for a little while, and they encounter these last surviving Neanderthal or whatever they are. And that produces the Beowulf myth. It's neat. It's a neat movie. The book's neat. It's the only Michael Crichton book I've read that I can say I actually like, but everybody has seen that one scene. Let's assume that everyone has seen that.
You're talking about Downfall?
Yeah.
I must have seen that movie so many times. Bruno Gantz is unbelievable.
Yes, he is. I have seen it once. I've seen that scene many times because it's on the internet. But
there's a counter movie to that. It's called Le Soleil, where it's about the emperor and the empress in Japan when MacArthur is coming to take over. So they're getting ready to welcome MacArthur.
Huh? No, is that the one where Liam Neeson plays MacArthur?
It's
or Tommy Lee Jones.
What's his face?
Oh, yeah, Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Excellent.
Yeah. By the way, somebody asked about the Thin Red Line.
Yeah.
We were on so James Jones wrote it's really autobiographical. So James Jones did fight in the Pacific apparently, and it's his experiences. I think it's on Guadalcanal, but I could be wrong about that. And there was a movie with I think Sean Penn was in it. And Nick Nolte called The Thin Red Line. So somebody asked, what do I think about it? I think that, the book was a hell of a lot better than the movie. Let me put it that way.
So it's a Terrence Malick film. Terrence Malick is known as a meticulously visual filmmaker, and it is a visually very well shot movie. If you go into it wanting a war movie, I think you're going to leave the theater disappointed and probably very early.
And I think that, to be fair, I think that James Jones's an element of the book was really about it was his experience. It's autobiographical, so it's his first person view of warfare, and I think that comes through in the movie. But the rest of it, it's kind of like it's just they're just trying to take this hill. There's no context for it. It's just kind of like it's almost like it's just like almost like Stanzel. It just didn't connect to anything that made sense other than you got to take the hill. And here he goes. Sting, yeah, he said the Thin Red Line is garbage, pure and simple.
He's always right.
I'm not a fan of it either.
I would say that I lean more towards that opinion of the movie, but the book. But I want to be clear: the original book, is much better than the movie.
What do you guys think of Band of Brothers, man?
Well, that
was a very good series.
Very good.
Yeah.
What about the Pacific one?
Pacific one's very good too. I didn't think it was quite as good, but part of that is because of the
story. Yeah. It wasn't.
And now they're making a new one, eh? They're making it about the B-17, man.
Yeah, 8th Air Force.
God, I can't
So
wait.
that'll be interesting. So the Band of Brothers is based on I think it's Cornelius Ryan book. So it has like one source text that they get to kind of build
No,
from.
it's not Cornelius Ryan. It's
Wasn't it?
Stucky. What's his name? Hang on, Band of Brothers book. I read the book, and I don't think it's.
Who calls for kids Stucky?
Book. Stephen Ambrose wrote the book.
Yeah, okay, you're absolutely right.
Well,
but
I'm looking on the internet, so
the Pacific is based on like 3 different books that are memoirs of people in the Pacific, and so it doesn't hang together quite as tightly as Band of Brothers does. But it's really just as well done.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was good. It's a great. And,
I try to make my wife watch that, and she's like, "It's a war movie." Nah.
Yeah, I can't. That doesn't work for me either.
But I mean, it's not just a war movie, man. It's unbelievable.
Well, it's a big time commitment too. You're committing to a 10-hour thing, so it's actually in some ways harder to get people to watch that than it is a movie, which is probably 2 or 2.5 or 3 hours or something like that.
And who would think that David Schwimmer can play such a piece of shit?
So Colonel Sobel ended up after the war committing suicide.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
He had some kind of significant medical issue or something like that. So he did not have a happy life after the events of the war. And I think a bunch of the actual Easy Company guys said afterwards, independently of the show, that his being a hard ass in the training was one of the things that helped them perform as well as they did. So, some credit is due to him for that probably. But certainly he is made out to be an absolute martinet in the film, in the show. And I would have David Schwimmer was perfect for that part.
My God, he was horrible. But I'm surprised that the generals actually listened to their men. Not the generals, the commanding officer of Sobel listened to the boots on the ground to see that this guy's fucking crazy.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't quite say. I'm not sure I clearly remember how it played out in the show, but all of those guys who were like resigned in protest, were all busted down to buck private too. So it wasn't quite as much as that. It was the general's going to feel like he needs to, or whoever it is, colonel, whatever, is going to feel like he needs to support his guy too. Right. And that's, as somebody,
I see, tit for tat kind of thing.
It's not that. It's that, you're kind of responsible for this person that has been placed in this position of responsibility, and you've got to back them, because then if you don't, then the people under that person will just go crazy. As somebody that's worked in middle management, I have been that guy. It sucks. So on both sides of it, when I was, in at least one case when I wasn't supported by the people upstairs.
What's Jeff saying here?
Sobel was a good officer, just not a combat leader. Sure.
Here's what we got to talk about. What about Apocalypse Now?
Oh man,
that's a great movie.
Yeah, if you're on acid,
it's definitely trippy. I mean, and I think it'd be a terrible idea to drop acid and watch that movie. Actually,
you know what? I'm gonna confess, I was on acid when I watched it.
Okay, I don't think that's I think that's a bad trip waiting to happen, is what I'm saying.
When that tiger came popping out,
Artie, what did you think about the extended version if you ever saw it?
I have only seen the extended version. Actually.
Okay, so
I think
the extended version goes on too long, but on the other hand, the narrative works. The other one is a little bit.
What are we talking about?
Apocalypse Now.
Oh, Apocalypse Now. Okay, yeah. No, I just love everything about that movie. It could do no wrong.
It's a brilliant film. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. It may well be too long. A lot of movies, that's a fault a lot of movies have.
Well, I mean, when they go Hertz, when they go and see Hertz, all these tribes and all that. I mean, okay, so I'm glad I was on acid when I watched it because that was a trip. But I don't know how.
I bet.
I have to say I can't relate, so I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad idea to me. That sounds like a bad.
What about Spartacus?
Spartacus. That's a great. Yeah, so that's a. I forget who the original director was, but they had some kind of disagreement. The Zanooks, I believe, had some kind of disagreement with the original director, so they brought in Stanley Kubrick. And it's very unlike a Stanley Kubrick movie, but it's still a great movie. Fun fact, when they restored the movie in, I think, the 80s or 90s or whatever it was, and they put that scene with Laurence Olivier and Tony Curtis in the bath where they're talking about the snails and the oysters, the original audio did not survive. Now, Tony Curtis was still alive at the time, so they actually brought him into the studio and re-recorded his vocals. Laurence Olivier was dead. They actually got Anthony Hopkins to redo his vocals. So in that the oysters and snails scene.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
Spartacus?
Yes.
By the way, and although it's probably great
movie,
just because you did mention, Kubrick, Paths of Glory.
Paths of Glory, man.
Yep.
That, you know what? That scene where the soldiers singled out to be executed, and Kirk Douglas, as the commanding officer, says, "Come on, just suck it up. Don't cry. Be a man." What are you, serious?
Easy to say when you're not the guy, right?
Christ, man.
Now, it's not a war movie, but
no, it's a social commentary.
No, but it's a one of my favorite movies, The Line in Winter.
That's
talking about what? Oh my God, that movie's off the scale.
That is, good. I would never have. I said this at the time, and I still say this. I would never have known Peter O'Toole was even in the movie if I hadn't seen his name in the credits. He is unrecognizable and absolutely brilliant in that film.
What's the setting of that movie?
Which part does he have?
He's Henry. He is Henry.
Oh yeah, he's the lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think that's Henry the First. I think it's Henry the First. I always get Henry the First and Henry the Second mixed up for some reason.
No, he's Henry the Second. He's married
to Catherine Hepburn.
Richard is his son.
Yes, and it's I believe it's Anthony Hopkins' first movie, and it's Timothy Dalton's first movie.
Yeah, by the way, if you've never seen Line in Winter, it's a
magnificent.
Check it out. I've never seen it.
Magnificent, absolutely seen it.
And by the way, and women, when I say women, I mean women. People who are not into war movies. It's not a war movie. First of all,
in fact, it's a Christmas movie.
It's about Christmas.
It is actually set at Christmas. Yeah. So that I think I'm going to try that this Christmas. Actually, so, oh honey, I found this new Christmas movie. She's seen it already. She knows the movie.
When Trumpets Fade.
It's a made-for-HBO film about the battle for Hurtgen Forest. I haven't seen it. It's supposed to be pretty good. When Trumpets Fade. No, this was 25 years ago.
Any good?
When Trumpets Fade. It may be available on Amazon Prime. It's supposed to be pretty good. I haven't seen it.
I'm going to check it out. I mean, that KilRoyWasHere is my consigliere. So,
So it's supposed to be good. And last I looked, it was on Amazon Prime. Or Netflix. I forget which. Maybe it was Netflix. But
what about the Full Metal Jacket, man?
So that's an interesting, because you used that in the video intro. It's a really good movie, but it's also an uneven movie. And thanks in some measure, I think, to R. Lee Ermey's somewhat brilliant, not somewhat, but totally brilliant performance as basically himself.
Yeah.
The first it's a 3-act film, but the first act of the movie is so strong that it kind of overpowers the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I understand.
I really think that third act is a really strong third act too.
I don't even remember the third act. I remember the boot camp.
The third act is when they're in the city and they're pinned down by the sniper.
I don't remember. Is that when the lady says, no, too big, black man?
No, that's the second act.
Oh.
That's the one where they're given their orders by Hawk the Slayer in the second act.
I don't remember. But I got some Italian friends who could put that guy to shame. Whatever.
So when they're in like I think it's Saigon, when they're in like Saigon and Matthew Modine is like in the little press room and he's being given the orders and they're going to cover this and they're coming, and Margaret's coming and all that stuff. That's the second act. And then he like goes out in the stuff with actual troops and then that ends the second act. And then the third act begins when they're in the actual like sort of combat situation.
The Big Red One. That was
I've never seen that.
Fantastic.
Never seen that. Mark Hamill's in it. I know that.
Yeah, so it's a good movie. It's got what's his name?
James Coburn? No,
the guy from
Lee Marvin. No,
Lee Marvin exactly is the one.
Yeah,
he's from the Dirty Dozen. It's by the way, that's a good movie. Dirty Dozen, yes. Yeah. I found that the problem with that movie was it's got very lousy the movie itself is good, but the tanks and all the background stuff is just, if you know anything about it, war gamers would kind of go like, oh, that's it's a Sherman tank or that's this kind of tank. They don't have any. They didn't spend any money on the on any of the
I
the
may
extras.
hypothetically know some of those people.
The scene that sticks in my head is when they discovered a concentration camp and one of the German soldiers is hiding in the crematorium oven. It's like bloody hell, man.
There's a sort of similar scene in Fury where Bruce.
Fury is a good movie. I
enjoyed it.
Brad Pitt's the tank commander, and he has they got some German POWs that they're pulling out of this building, and he spots the SS guy. And he, pull that guy aside, shoot him.
Yeah, but doesn't he try to get the young kid to shoot him?
The kid soldier, yeah.
Now, would that work in today, or do you have to account for why you just shot this guy without him shooting at you first?
It's something, so go back to, first of all, so go watch, like, if you watch the History Channel as much as I do, right? There was a...
now you're going to get Dan talking about the UFOs.
No, just stop. But there was a guy, it was about like the Battle of like Saipan or Peleliu, what are these things? And I had these, these Marines who were like on the island, they may be dead now, but they were interviewed. And they said right out, if we captured it, what did you do with the Japanese guys? I said, we would interrogate them. And then when we were done with them, we would shoot them. We couldn't send them back. We couldn't let them go. And we were nowhere near where we'd shoot them. And he said, I'm not proud of it, the guy said, but this is what we did. So it was historically, especially during World War II, if you're one guy and you surrender, chances are you're not going to make it. Now, if you're the 106th Regiment surrendering to the Germans in the Battle of the Bulge, there's too many guys to kill.
That's right.
Yet at Normandy, the 12th, I think it was the 12th SS. They had a whole. Speaking of Canadians, they had captured about several hundred Canadians, and the SS massacred them. So that happened.
That wasn't Malmedy.
No, Malmedy is Battle of the Bulge. I'm talking about Normandy. Yeah. This is like Canadian. Okay. Yeah, it's. I think I'm almost sure it's an SS division, but I think it's the 12th SS. Canadian massacre.
Bloody hell.
At Normandy. Let me see what it's going to come up. Yeah, executed 156 Canadian soldiers by German forces that had been taken prisoner in June 1944, soon after the start of Normandy. Yep. I knew that. I when I did. And by the way, this is like in the Canadian Encyclopedia. You guys should know this. Don't they teach this stuff to you in school or something?
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing up there.
I didn't do nothing in school. I did this.
I don't know. I can't tell you that American schools are better. So.
No, I got you. American schools are not better. Yeah, it was at this Abbey. Yep, but there was. I think I'm pretty sure. Who was it? Here it is.
In Monte Cassino.
I got it right. So it was the 12th SS Division led by Kurt Meyer murdered Canadian prisoners of war in Ardennes Abbey. The trial began in 1945. What happened to him? So he was tried by the Canadians for the war crime. It doesn't say.
I don't think he survived.
Well, I hope not.
But being put in a battle position in a war.
What happened to him? Mars going to work on, and he was, but so he was sentenced to death, but his sentence was later commuted to life in prison. So there it is. You Canadians are just too easy.
We're sorry.
Yeah.
Guys,
Anyway,
we've been on an hour and a half an hour more because we had a guest, Mark Herman. Mark, thanks so much, man. Your wife is Italian, right?
Last time I looked.
Okay, so Mark. Okay, well, Mark, thanks for being here. Artie, thanks a lot. I'm just gonna cut the show. There's gonna be no after-hour drinks. It's go fend for yourself, man.
Okay. All right.
Mark, thanks a lot.
Artie,
all right. It's
by
been
the way,
great.
I watch your YouTube channel. Good stuff.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks very much. Endorsed by Mark Herman.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys.
All right. Thanks. Have a great night.